Chapter 1: Golden Shadows Rise. The summer of 1984 was supposed to be a golden age. The air in Los Angeles hummed with anticipation, streets lined with American flags, the scent of hot dogs and popcorn thick in the stadiums, and the world watching as the United States prepared to host the Olympics. But beneath the glittering facade of patriotism and athletic glory, something darker was stirring. A secret betrayal, one that would redefine the very meaning of the Olympic dream. The 1984 U.S. Olympic basketball team was supposed to be a celebration of the best and brightest. A squad of college stars, handpicked for their skill, their heart, their potential to bring home gold. But as the selection process unfolded, whispers began to spread. Not all the choices were about talent. Not all the decisions were about merit. Some were about money. Some were about power. And some were about the quiet, insidious influence of those who pulled the strings from the shadows. The story starts with a name, Patrick Ewing, a towering force from Georgetown, a defensive anchor, a player who had dominated the college game. He was the obvious choice, the natural leader, the man who should have been the cornerstone of the dream team before the term even existed. But when the final roster was announced, Ewing's name was missing. In its place, a collection of players who, while talented, weren't the undisputed best. The question lingered, why? The answer lay in the back rooms of corporate boardrooms and political offices. The 1984 Olympics were more than just a sporting event. They were a business, a spectacle designed to generate revenue, to sell tickets, to attract sponsors. And in the world of high-stakes sports, sometimes the right connections matter more than the right skills. Some players were chosen not for what they could do on the court, but for who they knew off it. The selection committee, a group of men in suits who had never laced up a sneaker in their lives, made decisions that would haunt the sport for decades. They favored players with marketable names, with agents who could promise endorsements, with ties to the right sponsors. The result, a team that, on paper, looked strong but in the eyes of those who knew the game, felt hollow. And then there was the Soviet boycott. The Cold War loomed large over the games, and with the Eastern Bloc absent, the U.S. was guaranteed gold. Or so they thought. The absence of competition made the selection process even more suspect. Why bother with the best when victory was already assured? The answer was simple: profit. The Olympics were a stage, and the players were the stars. But some stars were brighter than others. As the team trained, the cracks began to show. Tensions flared. Players questioned the decisions. Coaches whispered in private. The media, ever hungry for a story, started to dig, and what they uncovered was a web of influence that stretched far beyond the basketball court. The truth was, the 1984 Olympic Dream Team wasn't just about basketball. It was about power, about who controlled the narrative, who controlled the money, and who controlled the future of the sport. It was about the moment when the dream of fair play collided with the reality of backroom deals. And as the final whistle blew on the games, as the gold medals were handed out, as the world celebrated another American triumph, the real story was just beginning. The story of how the Olympic dream had been betrayed. The story of how the shadows had risen and how they would continue to grow. But that's a story for another chapter.